So today we are going to have a look at this 2006 Ford Territory. So I'm going to talk about how we inspect used cars before we buy it. So we look for cars here and there. We look for cars online, on Facebook Marketplace, on Gumtree. We check cars on eBay as well. And we go around to people and see if they've got a car to sell. So sometimes we can find cars on the road, on the side of the road, with a for sale sign on it. So this car, we spotted this car in a yard, in a dismantle yard. So they've got few cars for sale. So we are just having a look. We take our time to inspect used cars before we buy it to make sure there is no surprise. So we are looking at this car, and the first thing that we usually check is the oil cap. We check the oil cap. So we just look at the cover and make sure that there's no white sludge on it. We have a look and look into see the cap and make sure that there are no white milky substances on it, and make sure that it's clean. And then we go to the coolant reservoir and open it up. Make sure it's not too hot, because sometimes it can spill. It can cause injuries. So make sure it's cold before we open it, and look into it and make sure there is no mixture of oil and coolant, because that could be a very bad sign of engine problem. Could be a blown head gasket. So you just look inside and look at the engine base and make sure there is no serious oil leaks, and make sure, as you can see, this car has got some oil leaks. So if we are buying it, we're gonna use it to negotiate the price down. It's got some oil leaks. It's not too much. There's nothing major. Could be just the gasket has got a leak on it, and we can easily change it. You can see. So after this, we just have to walk around the car and make sure there are no much dents or some scratches here and there, which is normal with a car of this age. It's 2006 model. So it's got a tow bar, so it's a plus for us, because some people would like to use this car to tow their caravan. So we just looked around the car, then check the tires, make sure it's not bald. Tires looks all right. These are safety issues. Make sure that the car is safe before you take it for a test drive. It's very, very important to avoid some crashes on the road. So the tires are good. The next thing that we look at is look at the interior of the car and make sure that things look all right. They've taken off the steering wheel cover, but it's all right. It's not a major problem. The seats are good. 7-seaters Ford Territory 2006 model. It's got a reverse camera. And the next thing you pay attention to would be to check the kilometers and make sure that it's not been tampered with. Usually this is Australia, so you can jump online and verify the kilometers and make sure it's not been tampered. But the old-fashioned way of checking the kilometer is to have a look at the pedals of the car. This is very tricky, because if the pedal is too dirty and the kilometer is like 90,000 k's or 80,000 k's, and the pedal is very old, as you can see, this is very old, then there is a problem. You become suspicious, because they must have done something with the kilometers. But With this one being 195,000 Ks, it doesn't look bad. It looks all right. So we just have to turn the key and watch the lights on the dashboard. So if you have a look at the lights, we can see the engine lights, which is good. Some cars, when you turn the key, the engine light is not there, so there is a problem. There is a problem because usually the engine light should come up as soon as you turn the key, before you start the car. If the engine light is not there, please be cautious. Probably they cleared it and took it off and disconnected it because there is a problem with the engine. So we usually wouldn't buy any car that the engine light is not on when we turn the key before we start the car. So this one looks all right. So we just turn the engine and the car started okay. It doesn't rev up and down. We suggest that you drive the car for like 20 to 30 minutes to make sure that the engine heats up. That way you can see if there is any major problems like overheating in the car. Don't just believe the seller. The seller can say anything just to sell the car. They can tell you any good stories just to sell the car. Just don't try. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust people, but you are trusting the seller at your own risk. So the law is buyer beware, because anything can go wrong. The seller just want to sell. So you make sure that you check the car very well. The engine is running good. Everything looks fine. There's no major noises. There's no ticking noises. The engine runs fine. Like I said before, few oil leaks here and there, nothing major. It's not too bad. So now we're gonna check the lights of the car, the indicator light, the headlamp, the brake lights. These are safety things, so they are very, very important. So just check make sure that the right indicator light works. It works. The back works. Just check the front and make sure it works. This is good, so it works good. Just check the left indicator lights, the back of the car, make sure it works. It works. So these are things that we check before we purchase a car. It takes a little bit of time, but it pays to inspect the car thoroughly. It pays to inspect the car thoroughly. Don't rush. Don't just say, oh, you want to make a lot of money just rushing. Don't rush. Take your time to inspect the car. Take your time to inspect the car. The headlamp is good. Looks good. This works. Then we're gonna check the high beam. You never know when you're gonna need it, so that's good. Looks good. Oh my God, this is gonna be a gold for us if we're able to negotiate the price down. And the seller is asking $5,000 for these 7-seaters, Ford Territory, 2006. It's not registered, so we have to make sure that we get the price good, because we're going to spend money on the registration. We're going to spend money to get it back on the road. But it looks good. Everything looks fine. The engine sounds good. So these are things, and we are running the car. We're gonna run the car for like 10 minutes before we drive, just to make sure that things are good before we drive the car. But I'm just gonna talk about the things that we look out for when we test drive. So the first thing is to listen to the brakes and make sure that the brakes are good. Make sure that the brakes are good. This is very, very essential. Make sure that the brakes are good. Make sure brakes are good, because that's very, very important. Then the next thing that we look out for when we drive the car is the transmission, to make sure there are no noises on the transmission, and make sure that the gear changes as it should. Make sure it's not skipping from gear 1 to gear 3 or skipping from gear 2 to gear 4. Make sure that the transmission is good. Transmission problem is usually a big job. You don't want to be doing that. If you want to do a transmission work, you make sure that you put that in the price before you buy the car. Otherwise, you are going to spend more than you expect to spend on the transmission. It's a big job. So we make sure the transmission is good. If it's no good, we have to negotiate with the seller and let the seller know about it. Another thing that we look out for when we test drive is we watch the temperature gauge of the car. It's very, very important, the temperature gauge, and make sure that the engine is not running hot, that it's not overheating. So we make sure that it's not overheating. It's been running for like 7 minutes and it's still okay, so it's not too bad. It's not running hot at the moment. Let's go. So I had a little bit of noise at exhaust, so it might have a little bit of exhaust leak somewhere. So these are things that we check, and most importantly, make sure there are no white smokes coming from the exhaust. It's not a very good sign if there is smoke coming from the exhaust, but this one there is none. So what we are doing, if you are just joining us now, is we are just inspecting a used car. We are inspecting a used car. We've looked at the engine, the oil, the coolant. We've looked at the engine base, looked around it, and make sure that there's nothing major. Of course, there is a few oil leaks, and we've checked the interior of the car. We've checked the lights and make sure the lights are good. We've checked the exhaust as well. So that's what we are up to this afternoon, and we're gonna go down and negotiate with after we test drive, we go down and negotiate with the seller and see if we can get a good deal. And hopefully we get a good deal for this car. Going to end this live broadcast. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.